Hi everyone, welcome to this video where we are going to try to deploy EJBCA RA with some level of automation using Helm chart and ConfigDump. The deployment itself should go very smoothly thanks to our ConfigDump and of course our Helm chart has been set up. So what we are exactly trying to do, you might remember with EJBCA we can spin up a multi-region highly available setup. But to do that, the CS should be talking to RAs and the VS. In this video, we are just going to focus on RA because that's a little bit simpler one, and we'll see how we can set up this automation using ConfigDump. In this case, just to recap a little bit how EJBCA operates, CS connect to each and every individual instances of RA running. So for an RA to be installed or like deployed using Helm chart, only one replica of RA should be used each Helm deployment, and CA should be connecting to each RA instance deployed. So that's our objective. So what are the prerequisites we are kind of hoping for? So of course a functional CA has to be set up. We kind of took care of that beforehand. In this case, we have a CA cluster running with 2 instances, and it has load balancer automatically on top of it, and we'll be connecting to this load balancer adjusted CA instance for like REST API based automation or like ConfigDump automation using REST API. But let's get into those things a little bit later. And one thing to note, we are using microKTs for deployment. So in our local cluster, we have certain level of resource constraint, but for this exercise, those are sufficient. For your use case, this should also suffice because like RAs are very lightweight. So even if your CA is running somewhere else, you can deploy an RA in any cluster you can hope for. So it has very low consumption of memory, at least for this use case. So let's get So of course we have to take care of few other prerequisites. So for an example, we always recommend to do a setup of Helm deployment in a fresh namespace. So we are going to create that. So let's name it RA deployment. Note that we have a separate namespace for CA2. It is called CA deployment. So let's deploy it. Let's create the namespace. So namespace created. And rest of the thing is to like, of course, creating an image pool secret. Image pool secret is to allow us to pull the image from a private repository. For an example, the key factor repository, or for an example, it can be a private repository in your company too. So we need to create an image pool secret. I am skipping this setup because it uses a confidential token. Then we have to go ahead with the database setup. It should be noted RA does not care about HSM, so that is why the prerequisite setup is a little bit shorter than the other instances, for an example CS or the VS. So let's set up the database. We are going to use MariaDB. So what we are going to do is to create 2 sets of secret, one for MariaDB, another for the EJBCA, so that both the instances use the same password. So let's go ahead and create this. So created. Now for EJBCA, just create it once more. Now let's deploy the database. Now we need to wait a little bit for the database to be up. So let's continue after that. So our database is finally deployed. It should be noted that we do not need this database to be inside Kubernetes. It can be something external. So for an example, a cloud service provider managed database. It is also to be noted that there is only one instance of the database because RA is directly communicating with the database, and there is only one RA instance per Helm deployment. So the database does not need to be replicated and should not be replicated. And rest of the things also look okay. But before going on ahead, we need to think about like how we are customizing the Helm values file so that we can have actual RA deployment, and think about the possibilities of the automation we are actually exploiting. So there are a lot of values and the customization opportunities in here, so it is better to just look into the documentation or just to grab this values YAML file using these comments. And if needed, you can also use this corresponding version with this version tag. Now let's take a look into this YAML file. So first thing you will notice, we are mentioning the variant of the image, which is RA. It will automatically pull in the EJBCA RA image corresponding to the version Helm chart is referring to. The image full secret. After that, then for the actual automation, we are using ConfigDump. So that is where we are enabling ConfigDump import, and we are using an external config map inside Kubernetes config map. So we are using ConfigDump import and using a Kubernetes config map, and inside that we have put the JSON file which will be imported in EJBCA. So the JSON file actually looks something like this. So let me just show you the config map. So this, I have prepared this beforehand, but I'm going to explain how this thing is happening a little bit later. So this is one thing. Second thing to note, that we again need to kind of provide this database URL and the credentials to EJBCA, and optionally we can configure the log level too. The TLS configuration and external access from the cluster happens through this sidecar NGINX, or alternatively you can also use HTTPD, Apache HTTPD. We are going to use this domain name, and given that we are saying load balancer, it will automatically provision an IP address for us so that we can access from outside, and the TLS should be taken care of by with this secret. We are going to issue a server certificate soon, and then we will mount it inside this sidecar. So in the next steps, we will delve into the details a little bit more.